Well, shalom, shalom. Welcome, welcome, world changers. And thank you, Hannah, again for the beautiful, beautiful music. Thank you for blessing us with your talent. That was amazing. All right, so tonight, I'm going to look a little bit into the news like we usually do. And critical thinking point number 4 from the article, 5 Reasons Why Intellectual Humility Would Be Good for You. And then we're going to get into Deuteronomy chapter 25. We're going to try to do at least, we'll try to do the first 10 verses anyway. We'll see how it goes. We kind of a little bit spontaneous in this sense. And then I have one comment that I'd like to read and respond to tonight. It's a really good comment, actually. It's not so much a question, but rather an informative comment. And yeah, I just thought it would be really, really good to read that and let you guys know. Anyways, I pray that everything we share here today would be a great blessing to you. Increase your knowledge of the scriptures, your knowledge of the things of heaven, your relationship with God, and your knowledge of the truth. Amen, amen, amen. Okay, so I am live on multiple different platforms here at once. I'm live on Kick. I'm live on Facebook, Twitch, DLive, Rumble, Instagram, BitChute, and X, and a couple others actually. If you are on any of these platforms, please be aware that I am alive, or that I'm live, on all of those platforms, and also on YouTube as well. So if you have an account on any of these platforms that I just mentioned, feel free to go over to said platforms and look me up over there, Christopher Enoch. You just search for Christopher Enoch. It should be the first thing that pops up. Make sure you got me over there. Make sure you're subscribed and following. God forbid any of these platforms, well, God forbid I disappear off of any of these platforms. It's my plan to keep doing what we're doing. It's just, we'll be doing it on other platforms. God forbid that ever happen. Just trying to make it so that we don't have all of our eggs in one basket, if you will. All right, so in the live chat we have Calamento says shalom, no. Seek the Lord says shalom. Well, shalom, shalom, welcome and blessings to you guys. Blessings multiplied to you and your families. Okay, so just quickly touch on a few. This seems to be a news thing that's going on, not necessarily in the secular news, but there's a few Christian news sources that is talking about this. I didn't see this in any of the secular news websites yet. Here is CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network. Riley Gaines asks, quote, "Are pigs flying?" unquote, after UPenn settles with Trump admin on men and women's sports. It says here, in another settlement victory for the Trump administration, the University of Pennsylvania, or UPenn, has agreed to no longer allow transgender identifying biological men to compete in women's sports. The U.S. Department of Education announced early this week that UPenn has entered into a resolution agreement to comply with Title IX. This comes after the department's Office for Civil Rights, or the OCR, opened a Title IX investigation into UPenn for awarding Leah Thomas, who previously competed as a male swimmer, a roster spot on the women's swimming and diving team, according to a Department of Education press release. Thomas was the first openly transgender athlete to win an NCAA Division I title. In February, the administration announced its investigation, and a few weeks later froze $175 million of the school's funding. By April, the administration investigation concluded the university violated the rights of female athletes by allowing a male to compete in female athletic programs and occupy female-only intimate facilities. Okay, so without reading the whole entire article here, you got something very similar over on Christian Post. Supreme Court will hear challenges to state bans on male athletes in women's sports. Yeah, certainly not fair. If you have a sporting, if you have biological women who want to compete with only other biological women, I think that they should be allowed to do so. So there should be those. They should be allowed to do what they want to do in that case. Yeah. Again, I'm just absolutely amazed at how far society has gone in this regard. It's very concerning and very vexing to me. Seek the Lord says, I agree. Well, yes, thank you. Seek the Lord. And all these kind of things like this is very grievous and vexing to me. Yeah, it's just very. It's a very sad situation that we're all in. That's for sure. Now I'm up in Canada. Canada is no better in that regard. So it's only we can just pray and do our best to push back at push back against any of these things that would be contrary to what we see in the scriptures and the ways of God and the way that God created everything, God's perfect will for his creation. All right, so I'm going to move on here to the critical thinking segment. We're going to read point 4 of 5 reasons, or I should say reason 4 of 5 reasons why intellectual humility is good for you. And so it says here, you can better build bridges with different kinds of people. Seems like a very obvious thing, when you intellectual humility. If you have intellectual humility, definitely, I think that would pave the way for building bridges with different kinds of people. So this article says, it might seem more obvious that intellectual humility could be a cure for political polarization and religious dogmatism. This is what we're dealing with a lot, aren't we? Religious dogmatism, the dogmolatry of the dogma, religious dogmatism. Indeed, that's exactly what research is finding, it says here. There are 2 seminal papers that examined the relationship between intellectual humility and extreme attitudes. Both studies, led by researchers at Duke University, found that intellectual humility predicted less extreme attitudes on a variety of topics that included physician-assisted suicide, government use of drone strikes, and the impact of religion on society. It is crucial to note that intellectual humility was associated with less extreme attitudes, but not with more support or opposition for any one position. I'll read that again. It is crucial to note that intellectual humility was associated with less extreme attitudes, but not with more support or opposition for any one position. There. Yeah, I think that's a good point. You can practice intellectual humility without support, without being pushed one way or the other. So that is to say, people higher in intellectual humility generally had more centrist views and were not any more likely to indicate that they supported, say, physician-assisted suicide, than they opposed it. It says, importantly, intellectual humility is unrelated to political orientation. according to most studies to date. Whatever side you're on, the other side is, on average, no less likely to be intellectually humble. They might even be just as altruistic or empathetic as you in their own way. The picture with religion is more complicated. No doubt, more complicated. Chipmunk says, Shalom everyone, Shalom Chipmunk, welcome, blessings multiplied to you and yours. This article says, research from Pepperdine University suggests that religious participation may be associated with less intellectual humility. Religious participation may be associated with less intellectual humility. This doesn't surprise me, and this does not offend me, because I do believe that, especially, well, I can speak more from the background of Christian, evangelical Christianity, because that's where I came from, basically. So, I understand that evangelical Christianity teaches basically against intellectual humility, even though they say it's, they teach humility, or at least they talk about it, but they teach against it because how they do that, they provide you like their script, right? Like their dogma, like believe what's on this, believe our statement of faith. Don't question it, because if you do, you're doubting, and that you're on your way to hell then. And anybody who would lead you to doubt what our statement of faith is false prophet, false teacher, heretic, or being used of the devil one way or another. So it basically kills intellectual humility. So it teaches people to practice intellectual pride, basically. It's like, I believe this because it's true, and I'm not going to give you evidence because, well, it doesn't need evidence because it's true. Because that's what the Bible says. Like, just so much presumption, so much, like, statement, like, truth claims without anything to support it, which I think is really, really not good. Chipmunk says, it doesn't happen often, but I have a case of vertigo. Oh, sorry to hear that. May that be resolved ASAP, I pray. Okay. Religious participation may be associated with less intellectual humility. According to that study, that's because people who are more religious are more likely to endorse conformity and deference to an authority figure. Okay, yeah. So like the fallacy, the appeal to authority fallacy. Well, it's true because this preacher said it. Somebody, this is what he taught, therefore it has to be true, because he's a man of God, or he's a pastor, or he's a priest, or he's the Pope, or he's the bishop, or he was an early church father. Well, it may be true, but it may not be. It says here, however, other work has found that there is no relationship at all between religiosity and intellectual humility. In any case, if there is a relationship between intellectual humility and religiosity, the research suggests that it's quite small. Okay. So it says here that it's basically, we got conflicting sources. So one says it is, the other one says there's no relationship at all. I would be asking questions, talk about critical thinking. I'd be asking questions about this claim here, that no relationship at all between religiosity and intellectual humility. First of all, I would be asking, first of all, what religion are we talking about? If it's Christianity, what denomination are we talking about? Are we talking about Protestant? Are we talking about what kind of Protestant? Speaking about Protestant, reminded me of the comment that we're gonna look at there afterwards. One of the leaders of the Protestant church, very interesting quote, very, very interesting quote. So we'll deal with that comment there after our scripture reading. Something that I wasn't aware of, but it's just like, wow, is that true? And I looked it up. I thought, I want to make sure that it is true before I repeat it. So it turns out it is true. Anyways, we'll get to that. Hold on your horses. We'll get to that. So yeah, this particular claim, I would say, what kind of religion was involved in this study? Who was studied? How big was the scope of their religious surveys? Was it just one church, one denomination, one branch of Christianity, or a different religion? Yeah, okay. So tomorrow, Lord willing, we will read intellectually humble individuals are more tolerant of other people. Makes sense. Makes sense to me. Okay, let's get into the reading for tonight. Deuteronomy chapter 25. Deuteronomy chapter 25. Okay, a second. So we're ramping up to the finale, the grand finale of the books of Moses. So once we get to chapter 27 especially, so that's talking, it's kind of going into more of this is what you'll this is the benefits that you'll have in following the instructions of God. Deuteronomy 28, of course, we have the infamous blessings and curses that are pronounced over those who obey or disobey. And then in Deuteronomy chapter 29, it's kind of like it's kind of like the lull before the storm of Deuteronomy 30, which is basically the Torah in a nutshell. And then the last 4 chapters is more or less just wrapping things up, talking about Moses' death and all that kind of stuff, getting ready for the book of Joshua. Okay, so because this is kind of like the end of the books of Moses, it's kind of like just tying up the loose ends. There's a lot of kind of miscellaneous laws here. So we'll get to this in just a moment. Al says, hugs to you, Chipmunk. Be safe and shalom, everyone. Great blessings. Yes, I agree. And great blessings multiplied back to you as well. Al, good to see you. Blessings multiplied to you and your family. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you are new here, we do this every single day. We read through the scriptures. We talk about critical thinking. We have added a little bit of a news segment on here. We get into the comment section, and I respond to the live chats. So recently what I've been doing is the live chats for the weekdays anyway are members only live chats. And there's various reasons why we have done it like this in the past little while. If you are if you like what we do here, if it's a blessing to you, like we've been doing this almost every day for the past, well, in what, another 6-7 weeks, it'll be 4 years. 4 years of like daily live streams. Let's see, how many? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 7 weeks. 7 weeks. 7 weeks will be our anniversary of daily live streams almost every day. So if you find value here, please consider becoming a member on our YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking the join link or the join button underneath, or clicking on the link in the description. There's also a thing in the description, become a member of this channel. You click on that link and it will take you to a page in which you can become a member. It's a very, very low nominal fee of $4.99 a month, $4.99 a month. And that, YouTube takes a good cut of that, so we get like $3 and something cents after that. But it's just a way just to kind of pitch in the pot. And for those of you who have become members, as a way of saying thank you, and as a way of respecting and honoring your membership, we have some perks, such as membership-only polls, membership-only posts, membership-only videos. Now, the videos, every once in a while, I release like a long-form edited video from our live streams. And what I've been doing for how many months now? Several months, I think it has been. Like, for example, I'm working on editing the Genesis series that we had there several months ago. So it's a lot of work. So I put up, I think it's 3 or 4 different parts of the Genesis series already. So I've edited it right down, and when I do post it, the members of the YouTube channel gets to see it first for the first month. Nobody else has access to the video except for the members. So members get the first grabs, if you will, on the new videos that are being released, as well as our members only video conferences that we've been having here. Kind of like Zoom kind of meetings. Although we don't use Zoom, we use Microsoft Teams, and get together. It's not broadcasted live, so you don't have to worry about being it's not public. It's just a private thing where we can get together and chat and talk about things. Talk about what's on your heart. Sometimes we pray for each other and all that kind of good stuff. So that's for members as well. If it's on your heart to go over and above just $4.99 a month, to say, oh, Christopher, what you're doing here is much more valuable than that. That's awesome. You can, if that's you, if you think that it's more valuable than that, please consider going to Subscribestar. We have a Subscribestar page, and we have a Subscribestar link in the description underneath. You can click that link, and it will take you to the Subscribestar page where you can donate over and above $4.99. In other words, the first $4.99, if you will, you can go through YouTube, and then if you have any, like, you say, hey, I'd like to pitch in this amount, on a monthly basis, you can go over to Subscribestar and choose that tier. There's many different tiers there. Subscribestar does not take as much of a cut as YouTube does, so you rest assured that a lot more of your donation goes to where you want it to be. So thank you for those of you who are members. Thank you for your support. It is much needed and appreciated. And thank you for those of you who are considering becoming members. Please do consider it. It shouldn't. I mean, again, it's a very low, almost nothing. I mean, what other service would you get in this, like two hours at least a night plus, on the weekends. Sometimes we go way over 2 hours. What other service would give you this kind of live service, couple hours every day? Like, what's that? 60, 70 plus hours every month? How much is 70? I'm just guessing. It may be more than that. 70 hours a month of great fellowship. And I'm doing my very best to provide a great platform to go through all of these manuscripts and to study the scriptures like you have never, ever heard before. Personally, I don't know of anybody that does this on a live. I don't know of anybody who goes live and just goes through the major families of manuscripts and studies these things word for word, digs in. I have attended, I've sat in on classes on a couple different Bible schools, and they got nowhere near what we're doing here. I personally know of people, that have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on education that's basically just the tip of the iceberg. We got the entire iceberg here. Yeah, so anyways, thank you guys thank you for those of you who are supporting, and thank you for those of you who are considering to support. Again, it's much needed, and hope that you do. If you find no value here, then don't. Okay, don't. No pressure. All right, guys. So I'm going to dive in here in the scriptures in just a moment. Jody says, "Shalom, all prayers to you, Chipmunk. Glad I caught the last 30 minutes or so of the members meeting." Yeah, it was great to see you there, Jody. Always nice to catch up with you guys. Kate, I missed Seek the Lord since you just left. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it was great to see you, Jody, for sure. All right. So we have 6 major families of manuscripts. Of course, there are others, many other different manuscripts, but these are major families of manuscripts. Like, some of you may have Bibles, okay? And if you may have footnotes on the so you got let me see if this one has a footnote. Actually, this particular Bible doesn't have a good test for footnotes when it comes to Bibles. If you go to John chapter 8, let me see if I can show you this. I'm just going to make sure that we got. Okay. So this is my first personal Bible. There was somebody who purchased this for me. It was actually given to me as a birthday gift some 41 years ago. 41 years ago. And so this is an NIV version. Yeah, that's where I started, folks. NIV. Go to John chapter 8 or John chapter 7, verse 50. That would be verse 53. That would be the last verse of John chapter 7. Anyways, if you have what I would consider to be a good Bible, there's none that's perfect, but especially ones that tell you about the major manuscript variations. Like right here, I'm not sure if you can read that or not. It says there, right where my finger is, the earliest and most reliable manuscripts do not have John 7, verse 53 to all the way through to John chapter 8, verse 11. So kudos to the Bible publishers of this particular Bible, that they included that, even though I'm sure that's controversial. A lot of people don't like that, but hey, we want the truth, right? We don't want just dogma. We want the truth. So in the footnotes of some Bibles, good Bibles, as much as it can be good. You'll find like Syriac says this, or LXX says this, or VUL says this, or the TA or TG, TG adds this or doesn't have this, or the SAM, right? So you got all these different abbreviations. Those abbreviations are for major manuscript families. The MT would be the Masoretic text. The LXX is an abbreviation for the Septuagint. The word Septuagint, I believe it's Latin, comes from the Latin, which means 70. So LXX in Roman numerals is 70. And they call it 70 because the story goes that 70 rabbis or 70 scholars, scribes, translated it from the ancient Hebrew into Greek about 2,200 some odd years ago. Then you got the Syriac. There are different names for the Syriac. The Syriac is also called the Aramaic, and it's also called the Peshitta. So what that is, it's an Aramaic translation of the ancient Hebrew, right? So, historians believe that Jesus spoke Aramaic. That was his mother tongue, Aramaic. The VUL stands for Vulgate. So that's a different manuscript that was compiled, translated by a man by the name of Jerome. In the Orthodox and Roman Catholic circles, they would call him Saint Jerome. And he lived around the 7th century. Okay. So we do have all of these manuscripts. We got an English translation of every one of these manuscripts. We have right now, my screen is divided into 4. Up in the top left-hand corner, I have the WEB translation of the Masoretic text. That text is the same text that is used to translate the King James Version. It's the same root. King James, New King James, NIV, NASB, CSB, ASV, RSV, and all the other SVs out there. Sounds like a virus. Is from more than likely, well, actually I shouldn't say more than likely. They're all based on the Masoretic text. There are a few not so popular versions that are not based on the Masoretic text. Like, for example, I have an Orthodox Study Bible. I don't have it in front of me here, so I can't show you guys. But, and again, I don't get anything for this. I don't get a penny for saying this. But you can purchase an Orthodox study. You look it up, go to your favorite store, and look up Orthodox Study Bible. That Bible is very unique because it is based on the Septuagint and not the Masoretic text. It's one of the only ones that is based on the Septuagint, and that's because Orthodox, like the Orthodox Christian Church, typically goes by the Septuagint, not so much the Masoretic text. Yeah, so that's very interesting to read that one too. So we have in the top left-hand corner, we have the Masoretic text, or this is the English translation of the Masoretic text. Above me is the Brenton Septuagint. That's an English translation of the Greek Septuagint. Now, this is older than the Masoretic text. You might say, how can it be older? Didn't they originally write it in Hebrew? Well, yes, they did write it in some form of Hebrew originally, like for example, Moses or David or any of these other authors of the Bible, of the books of the Bible. But here's the thing. This Hebrew text, the Masoretic Hebrew, is almost like an updated version of the ancient Hebrew, and things have changed along the way. And we know this because the Septuagint shows us some massive differences. Although we don't have the original Hebrew manuscript that was used to translate it into Greek, I think it's safe to say, and quite likely, very likely, that the translators of the Septuagint had a Hebrew text that was different in many ways than what we have from the Masoretic text. I'll just give you an example, okay? Just an example. There's so many examples. I'm just trying to think. One thing that came to mind was the book of Job. So the book of Job in the Septuagint has 400 lines more than the Masoretic text. You can look at it the other way around. The Masoretic text is missing 400 lines of the book of Job. I would say that's a little bit significant. Now, what's the likelihood of the translators of the Septuagint adding 400 lines that didn't exist in the Hebrew? I would think it's quite unlikely that they would do that because they're translators. They're supposed to be translating from the Hebrew. So it's apparent that in many cases they must have had another text that varied greatly from the Masoretic text. Another example is the book of Proverbs. I remember a couple years ago, and maybe it might be a couple of you that are watching this that you were with us a couple years ago when we went through the book of Proverbs. If any of you can remember that, if you were there, we went through the book of Proverbs and we compared the Masoretic with the Septuagint. I can't remember if we compared some of the other ones, but I know it was the Masoretic and the Septuagint anyway, at least in some parts of the book of Proverbs, maybe not the entire book. But it was very, 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 very different. Not just a different translation. You got like something completely different. Like completely different. Because I know somebody might say, well, it's just a different translation. It's just looking at it a different way. No, it's like this one over here is talking about a man's way with a woman. And this one over here is talking about, ants or something. Like, I mean, something that's completely different than what we would have in what we have in the other text. In the Hebrew, we have wisdom being called she, but in the Septuagint, in many places, wisdom does not use that pronoun in the Septuagint. So again, it seems to me like that the original Hebrew that the Septuagint translators had differed from the ones from the Hebrew of the Masoretic text. And same with all these other ones too, like same with the Syriac, and then I have the Vulgate behind me. Some of these things are so different. It's like the likelihood of these translators actually just making stuff up. I mean, it's possible, but the likelihood of it is quite slim when they're supposed to be a translator. Yeah, so, anyways, we got the Masoretic, English translation of the Masoretic text up there in the top left-hand corner, English translation of the Greek Septuagint in the top right-hand corner, English translation of the Aramaic, aka Syriac, in the bottom left-hand corner, and we have the English translation of the Latin Vulgate behind me. We also have English translation of, again, talk about a different text. We have, I keep on, for some, I don't know what happened. The Targum keeps on slipping out from my fingers here. Where is it now? Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, so English translation of the Targum over here on the left. This Targum is another text that's originally in Hebrew. And then we have an English translation of the Samaritan manuscript. And this is also originally in Hebrew. So they differ from each other. And that's not even to mention the Dead Sea Scrolls as well, which is what there, the Dead Sea Scrolls are in Hebrew as well. Okay. So let's begin with the WEB translation of the Masoretic text, Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 1. If there is a controversy between men, and they come to judgment, and the judges judge them, then they shall justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. Pretty matter-of-fact kind of commandment. Like, this is the kind of commandment, like, what comes to my mind is like, this really doesn't even have to be said. Like, maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's like, yeah, you justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. I mean, for sure. Why would there need to be a commandment to do that? The Septuagint says, and if there should be a dispute between men, and they should come forward to judgment, and the judges judge the right and justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. Oh, okay, so here, the way this is put, look at right off the bat, we see this. The way this is worded, it's not a commandment to justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. It is a statement that they will justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. And then in verse 2 it goes on to talk about what will happen after that. So the way the Masoretic text is worded is if it's a commandment to justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. Like, then they shall justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. Whereas the Septuagint puts it in a way like it's just like an obvious thing. Yeah, they're going to justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. The Syriac says here, and if there shall be a judicial case between a man and his neighbor. So you see the differences here. Like, there are so many there's minor differences, different words, entire different words here. So the Masoretic says between men. The Septuagint says between men. But the Syriac says between a man and his neighbor. The Syriac says between a man and his neighbor, and it goes on to say, then let them approach the judges, and they shall judge them, and they shall justify the innocent, and shall condemn the guilty. Okay. Vulgate. If there shall be a controversy between men, and they call upon the judges, they shall give the prize of justice to him whom they perceive to be just, and to him they find to be wicked, they shall condemn the wickedness. They shall condemn of wickedness. Okay, so this looks like a commandment, again, to do the obvious. Justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. Well, let's see what the Targum has to say. Targum. Here we are. And the Targum says, if there be a controversy between two men, then they shall come to the judges, and they shall judge them, and give the decision or outweighing of righteousness to the innocent, and of condemnation to the guilty. All right, well, let's see what we have here in the Samaritan text. Deuteronomy chapter 25. Verse 1, if there is a dispute between men and they go for a judgment, and the judges judge their case, and they justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. That's what it says. Okay, so bring up the verse 2 from the Masoretic here. WEB translation, it says, it shall be, if the wicked man is worthy to be beaten, that the judge shall cause him to lie down and to be beaten before his face, according to his wickedness by number. Wow. Can you imagine that in court today? It's like get right to business. And they mean business if it's right there and then. Okay, so you're guilty. That's it. On your lay down. And they're beaten right there, right before the judge. In the Septuagint, it says, "Then it shall come to pass, if the unrighteous should be worthy of stripes, you shall lay him down before the judges, and they shall scourge him before them according to his iniquity." Syriac. Now the Syriac looks a little bit shorter here. The Syriac says, "And if the guilty ones..." Hold on a second. How can that be so short? "And if the guilty owes chastisement, the judge shall lay him down and shall whip him before him, as is right for his offense." It sounds like the judge himself whips him here. Okay, so the Vulgate says, "And if they see that the offender be worthy of stripes, they shall lay him down, and shall cause him to be beaten before them. According to the measure of the sin shall the measure also of the stripes be." According to the measure of the sin shall the measure also of the stripes be. Not every sin is equal. Not every sin is equal. Some sins are little, some sins are great. Some sins are greater. As Yeshua himself, according to the Gospels, speaking about Judas, he has committed the greater sin. So there is greater sins, lesser sins. I see some people are asking, so if you're on a platform other than YouTube and you like to ask a question, okay, please go over to YouTube and please become a member on YouTube, and your feed, your question, your live chat will come through here, and I will get to it ASAP. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the Targum, verse 2. "And if the wicked deserve stripes, the judge shall make him lie down, and shall scourge him in his presence by his judgment, according to the measure of his guilt." Okay. So the Samaritan says, "And it shall be, if the wicked man is old enough to be beaten." Old enough? What? So the Samaritan speaks of the age, nothing else. None of the other manuscripts talk about the age, but the Samaritan does. It shall be, if the wicked man is old enough to be beaten, the judge shall then make him lie down and be beaten in his presence with the number of stripes according to his guilt. I'm only going to say this one more time. I notice there are people here after I said what I just said about the questions in the live chat. I'm only answering questions on YouTube live chat. If you're really serious about this live stream and you find there's value here and you show up every day, please consider going over to YouTube and becoming a member. Okay, and when you become a member, you will. That's one of the perks that you will have. Even on Shabbat, when the live chat is open for everybody, I do put priority on the members. In other words, if we have 2 members putting live chats in, and there's 10 other ones that are not members, I'm going to go for the members first. They value the content enough just to pitch in 16 cents a day. So they'll get the priority. Thank you for your understanding. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Verse 3 of Deuteronomy chapter 25 from the Masoretic text, WEB translation. He may sentence him to no more than 40 stripes. No more than 40 stripes. Then he shall not give more, lest he should give more and beat him more than that many stripes. Then your brother will be degraded in your sight. So, there is talk in Christian circles, and I'm sure some of you have heard this already. There is talk Sorry, I just saw Al was greeting Katrina here, and I didn't see anything from Katrina at all. And I saw there, I had to go straight to YouTube, and I see that Katrina came on, and then there was another message that was retracted. My apologies, Katrina. I didn't know you were here. So, yeah, welcome. Blessings. Shalom, shalom to you, your family, and your friends down under. Good to see you. And my apologies for missing your live chat there, because I think what happened here, because I'm not using YouTube, I'm using third-party software for this, and I've noticed this a few times. If somebody comment and puts a live chat in, and then they put in another live chat, and they delete that one, retract that one, both of them get retracted on my end. I don't see any of them. I don't see anything. But I do see the one on YouTube now. In other words, Katrina, I don't want to be I don't want to get too confusing here. In other words, I didn't see it. My software did not show me your comment, but thanks to Al greeting you, I saw that. So, anyways, yeah, and good to see you. And don't worry about being late, Katrina. That's fine. Good day, blessings multiplied to you and yours. Every once in a while, YouTube, or I shouldn't say YouTube, but the software that I'm using here, it does have the little bugs in it sometimes. Okay, hope that doesn't happen again. So, there is a teaching that is in Christian circles that Jesus received his 39 stripes, 40 stripes minus 1. I know this teaching is very, very popular and prominent, especially within Assembly of God, Word of Faith kind of circles. What should I say? Like, quote unquote, faith healer kind of circles. Because they use that, they say there's Jesus received 39 stripes, and by his stripes we are healed. And there's even some claim, which I think it's probably not true, but some people have claimed that there are only 39 categories of disease, and so Jesus was whipped once for each one of these categories of all these different sicknesses and diseases. I haven't confirmed that, so I'm not going to confirm that yet. I don't have that information. And I'm not going to outright deny it either, but it just doesn't sound. I mean, if we're talking to a medical doctor here, and are there only 39 categories? Well, maybe there is. I don't know, but I would challenge that. Because you notice here in Deuteronomy 25, verse 3, that the whole idea here is to not degrade the person who's receiving these stripes. So in the Gospels, we see that Yeshua was very much degraded. So how do you, what gives here? How do you figure? So here's the thing. So who gave, number one, did Yeshua get stripes? If he did, who gave it to him? Was it the Jews or the Romans or somebody else? Would it not be the Romans? So would the Romans be obeying Torah here? Would they be saying, oh, we better follow Torah, not any more than 40 stripes. We'll just give them 40 stripes minus 1. Would they be doing that? What do you think? Let me know in the live chat. It just seems to me that, yeah, Yeshua probably was striped, like he was whipped, the Roman cat o' nine tails, if you will. Even that right alone tells you, that it was Roman. So I do believe that it's quite clear in the Gospels he was whipped, he was striped. Doesn't tell us how many times. So why do some Christians claim that they know how many times? It seems to me like it's all based on this verse. Well, it's got to be 40 stripes minus 1. It's got to be 39 because you don't want to give them 40 because, well, the law of God says only 40 or no more than 40, so that'd be 39. So 40 or 39 or 40, whatever you want, wherever you want to draw the line there. And so therefore Jesus must have been whipped this amount of times. Like not 20, not 25, not 30, not 35, but rather 39 or 40. So it appears to me like it just doesn't fit. Like, why would this apply to Yeshua? Because this whole thing about not being degraded, and I see here in the corner of my eye, not being disgraced in the Septuagint, it just doesn't fit the crucifixion. The crucifixion was very much a degrading thing. Not only, for those who were crucified, they were stripped naked and beaten mercilessly. They were humiliated to the utmost, hanging naked on a cross and in a total bloody mess. So, if any of you are still hanging on to this, if you're watching this, and you're hanging on to this being, Yeshua, this applied to Yeshua. He received 39 or 40 stripes. That's all he received. I would have to ask, how do you come to that conclusion? Because this commandment is to protect the man's public image. This is to protect his public image. In other words, if you whip him more than 40 times, he's going to be far too humiliated than he should be. So this is like, I have believed for a long time that Yeshua was whipped 39 times because that's what I was taught. That's what, and just kind of like, wow, that's an amazing fact. Well, Jesus was whipped. He was whipped with the Roman cat o' nine tails, and he was whipped 39 times. So I never actually saw it until just tonight. That the reason, according to the Torah here, is not that the only reason is just not to degrade him, not to disgrace him. Not to make him into a public shame. But that does not fit the profile of Yeshua being crucified. Because he was shamed to the uttermost, right? So it just doesn't seem to fit. It's the jigsaw puzzle that just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit that place. In my estimation, that's what I see here. Chipmunk says, I never thought of that before. It just made my head spin more. Oh no. Oh no. No, we don't want your head spinning more, Chipmunk. Blessings, blessings. Katrina says, I was of the teaching that it was general knowledge that 40 stripes kills a man. The Scottish and English followed this. I believe other cultures whipped more as death or brokenness is desired. I don't know how many stripes Yeshua had, though, as I personally was not there. Yeah. And it doesn't really tell us. I mean, this is the only time it really talks about the number of stripes and the reason why it should be limited to this. But it doesn't really tell us in the Gospels or anywhere in the New Testament how many times he was striped. So it must not be of that much importance, or else, I would think that it would be in there somewhere. Yeah, thank you, Katrina. Very interesting. Yeah, Scottish and English followed the very same thing. What you said there. Very interesting, Katrina. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Let's check out the Syriac. What does the Syriac say here? The Syriac says 40 times in number they may whip him, and they shall not exceed, lest when they exceed, they whip him more than this whipping, and your brother will suffer excessively before your eyes. Okay, so this is a little bit different, right? So it puts it in a little bit different spin here. The Masoretic talks about him. You just don't want him to be degraded. That's the only reason why you don't stripe him any more than that. The Septuagint says you just don't want him to be disgraced. That's the reason why you don't stripe him any more than that. Now this one, the Aramaic says you don't want him to suffer excessively before your eyes. Yeah, and what Katrina mentioned here earlier as well about if a man is striped more than 40 times, then he would die. That's what I've been taught as well. I have been taught that. So far in all the manuscripts, I don't see that. I think it would be. It would all depend too, right, on the velocity of the striping. I mean, you could technically stripe someone 40 times and not really even hurt him that much at all. I mean, technically, I'm just saying. And unless you really use the Roman canine, but even then, yeah, you would hurt him, but it wouldn't. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can have one big, bear of a man just plowing the guy, and you can have another guy who's not very strong at all and not very fast at all, and he wouldn't produce as much damage, I don't think, as somebody who would really be just pounding him, right? So it doesn't talk here about the Roman cat o' nine tails or anything like that either. So I mean, I have to make sure I don't assume that that's what happened to Yeshua, even though I've been taught that as well. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that he wasn't whipped with the Roman cat o' nine tails. I just got to be careful not to just assume that. Again, we don't have that information in the scriptures. Anywheres. Katrina says, after 40 lashes, a man passes out and could die. Well, yeah. Yeshua did die before his legs were broken. So he did, according to the Gospels again, the Synoptic Gospels anyway. So he did die before his legs were broken. Just double check here. Sorry, it's not. That's not in the Synoptic Gospels. That's only in the Gospel of John. That's why I just wanted to double check. So that is only in the Gospel of John, where it says that they came to Jesus and saw that. Yeah, right here. John, over here on the left, John 19:33, but when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. So he was beaten to the point of death before the regular death would be inflicted upon them on the cross. So he did prematurely die on the cross. Yeah, so it's like any other kind of punishment when it comes to that kind of violence. It would depend on the one who's inflicting. I would think. I would suppose if you were the one that was carrying out the lashings, and if you hated the guy more, you might put a little bit more force behind it. So that would do a whole lot more damage. So that the 39 could equal like 70, of the of the normal of an average man. So I wouldn't say like. Now to come to think of it, so I believe this as well. I believed, because again, I was told it, so I believed it, that Jesus was whipped 39 times. Because if he was whipped any more than that, he would die. And by his stripes we are healed. And there are 39 categories of sicknesses and diseases. Therefore, he covered them all. Therefore, we're all healed of all sickness and disease forever. That's basically what I've been taught. But now to come to think of it, it's the first time I'm thinking out loud, guys. I'm learning as I'm going with you guys. I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be logically consistent. I don't think it would be true that. Let's say, for example, we gave him 41 stripes. He's dead. He only got 40. He's good. He'll survive. I don't think that would work, because there's a lot more factors that would work into it. How fast were you whipped? Because it could be slow. It just could be like, it was 1, it was 2, If it was, even if it was the Roman canine tails, it might be just the chips of bone and glass just kind of bounce off your skin, because it wouldn't be really digging into it, because it wouldn't be. So it would all depend on many, many factors. Probably even the humidity. If it's really dry out, your skin would be harder, right? And if it's really wet, your skin would be, if it's really humid, your skin would be more susceptible to being lacerated. Scientifically speaking. And if Yeshua was, and it depends on how they crucified people too. Like, did they give him a lot of water? Did they douse him with water? Because all this kind of stuff prepares the skin, or the skin would be subject to all of these environmental variables. And then it would be, well, how was the Roman canine tails manufactured? Now, I'm just assuming it was Roman canine tails, because I was told that when it comes to Yeshua, but it doesn't say that. I don't think. Where does it say that? where does it say that Yeshua was whipped with Roman canine tails, or anybody else for that matter? Or, in the Torah, it doesn't say anything about that, of course. So I think there'd be a lot of variables. I would think that if the Roman canine tails, okay, for those of you who are listening to this, you're wondering why I'm going on about Roman canine tails. What is that? I have been told that Roman canine tails is basically one whip, but it's 9 strands on one whip. So it's almost like you got like a baton with you got nine strands tied to like a baton, and you would whip, and on the end of each one of these 9 strands would be pieces of bone or glass or metal or something to that effect that would dig into a person's skin as they'd be whipped. That's only what I've been told. I haven't confirmed that as fact, as historical fact. I don't know. And whether or not Yeshua was, but even then, even if it was a Roman cat of 9 tails, which I don't think that would work here, because the Torah is the whole chapter of 24 that we just read is all about being moderate and kind and nice, and it's all about being good to people, not going over and above, excessive, and not giving to people too much pain. Return the pledge to the widow, and don't glean all the stuff over your field or your trees. It's all about that. These are all commandments of mercy. So this commandment right here about the 40 stripes is nested within the commandments of mercy. Don't degrade him. Don't disgrace him. Don't give him any more than 40. Because if you go to like 80, man, like it's just way too much. You're going to disgrace him too much. He's going to be too much. He's going to be too degraded. You don't do that. And of course, nothing here is Roman. So where would you get the Roman canine tails for this? So this would be just a regular stripe, whip. So there'd be so many factors that would play into it. If those pieces of bone or metal or glass are if they're new, then they would do much more damage than if they were old and they were used a lot, right? Because everything gets dull with use, right? Everything gets dull with use. And then we got the environmental variables, not humidity, but the water content of the skin of the one who's receiving this. That would make a big difference as well. Even just the thickness of the skin would also come into play. Because you have some people that have very thin skin, literally thin skin. Then you have people that have thicker skin, literally thicker skin, right? People work a lot with their hands. They get the skin on their hands are a lot thicker. And then you got people that are just naturally got more thicker skin. So it wouldn't make sense, as much as I used to believe this, it wouldn't make sense to say, well, 39 is not going to kill the man, but 40 will, or 41, or 42, or 43 will. It just really wouldn't make sense at all, because that is assuming that everything has to be exactly the same. The humidity of the air, the velocity of the stripes, the actual sharpness of the glass or the bone or the metal. Everything has to be exactly the same for everybody, which it would never be. There's no way that would work. The velocity, the speed of the whip must be perfectly exactly the same in order for a law like that to actually be based on, just don't kill him. Because really, hey, so if it was a Roman cat of 9 tails, and if it was something like pieces of knives or something, like knives on the end, like pieces of sharp metal on the end, like razor blades on the end of these on the end of these strands of the whip. I mean, hey, one stripe would kill the guy, especially if the stripe caught him in some of the veins of his neck or something like that. One stripe would kill him. Or if they caught like some of the major arteries in a person's leg, something like that. So, yeah, and so it seems to me that this commandment does not perfectly fit the profile of Yeshua being striped, because he was degraded, he was disgraced. So this is it's just against, to disgrace him as much as they did for the crucifixion according to the Gospels. It's just going against the very purpose of this. It's not fulfilling, is what I mean. It's like it's not fulfilling this commandment to keep him from being degraded or disgraced. So the Vulgate here behind me says, "Yet so that they exceed not the number of 40, lest your brother depart shamefully, torn before your eyes." Okay. Well, let's see here what we have in the Targum. Okay. Targum. 40 stripes may be laid upon him, but with one less. So that's... It amazes me how many Christians go with the teaching of Jewish documents like Targum or the Talmud when it suits their narrative. Because this is not in quote unquote the Bible, not in the Christian Bible. At least I don't. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. Where is it in the Christian Bible? Where does it say one less 40? Does it say that? Let me have a look. Second Corinthians, Paul said that he was whipped. So this is not necessarily commandment or fulfillment of this. This is just Paul in 2 Corinthians 11:24, from the Jews 5 times. 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. I mean, if a guy can endure that 5 times over, okay, back to the Targum, it says, with one less shall he be beaten, the full number shall not be completed, lest he should add to smite him beyond those 39 exorbitantly, and he be in danger, and that your brother may not be made despicable in your sight. So here's a couple reasons that he be not in danger. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I mean, you can take that to mean that 40, 41, it might affect him, his health, but it could be in other ways as well. He might be in danger being made despicable. So again, there's this public image. You got to keep this guy's public image you got to keep his public image at least half decently respectable. See what this Samaritan says. He shall beat him 40 times, no more, that he does not beat him with many more stripes than these, and your brother is not degraded in your eyes. Okay. Well, let's move on. Oh, this next verse brings back a lot of memories for me. You shall not muzzle the ox when he treads out the grain. That's the Masoretic Septuagint. You shall not muzzle the ox that treads out the corn. The Syriac, you shall not muzzle the ox in treading. Doesn't say anything about treading, what it is that he's treading. Vulgate, you shall not muzzle the ox that treads out your corn on the floor. Targum, you shall not muzzle the mouth of the ox in the time of his treading out. Okay, so this another whole section added here. Nor the wife of the deceased brother, who would be mated with one smitten with an ulcer, and who is poorly related, that you tie up with him. That's confusing to me. I'm not sure what that means and why that would be there. And what that would have to do with the muzzle, the mouth of the ox. Very unusual. Samaritan says, you shall not muzzle the bull while it is threshing. Tell you a true story, guys. So I used to work at this one place that was, it was like a food processing facility, and I was put in charge of this one area, and people would come, the employees would come and help themselves to the food quite frequently. And it's like they didn't really have the authority, like they didn't have the authorization just to take anything and everything that they wanted to take. It's like they were stealing from the company, just loading up bags of food and just taking them home. So, I mean, I was the one I was put in charge of the area. So eventually I decided to let the supervisor know what was going on, just let you know what's going on here. Okay. You got a lot of people here just coming and taking food, just taking it home, stuffing their bags. So it was only the employees that would do this. Several of them. So the gentleman who was over me, my supervisor, he was a Christian. He was a church-going Christian. He was the type of guy you would expect him in church every Sunday. And he wasn't young either. Like he may have close to 60, maybe getting up in around that 60 some odd years old. So I stopped him and I said, "Excuse me, I just I feel like I should let you know what's going on here. We got like several people coming here on a regular basis, like every day, sometimes more than once a day, and they're just taking the food. They're just stuffing their bags and taking it home." I'll never forget what he said to me. Never forget it, because he looked at me and he said, "You shall not muzzle the ox when he treads out the grain." And he walked away. Like, okay, I guess your workers are oxen and this is the grain of this is what they're working on, so they can take as much as they want. Okay, sure. If that's it, that's the way you want to look at it, fine. Okay. You shall not muzzle the ox that treads out the grain. Okay. So verse 5. Verse 5. And by the way, guys, a little bit of a reminder at the we'll read another few verses here, and then I'm going to pull up this comment. And it's an unusual comment. It's a good comment. It's an informative comment. I have learned something from this comment. I myself learned something from this comment, and I want to share it with all of you because it was a blessing to me, and I want to bless y'all with it. So we'll do that in just a little bit here. Okay, so verse 5, Masoretic text, WEB translation. If brothers dwell together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the dead shall not be married outside to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her as his wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. Now that seems a little bit strange. That seems a little bit odd, doesn't it? Because there's lots of questions here. Like, so what if the husband's brother is already married? What if the husband brother doesn't like her at all? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. This is like a commandment. Septuagint. If the brethren should live together, and one of them should die. Okay, so they're living together already, like both of the brothers. So it would be, so I guess in that situation, in that circumstance, it wouldn't be that much of a shock, right? It'd be like they're already together, they're already living together, the two brothers and their wives are already, so it's not too much of a shock. So they're already basically on the same page in many ways. If your brothers should live together, if brethren should live together, and one of them should die, and should not have seed, the wife of the deceased shall not marry out of the family to a man not related. Her husband's brother shall go into her, and shall take her to himself for a wife, and shall dwell with her. So this is the commandment that was, you remember, where is it now? This is one of those commandments that it's a very serious commandment. So in Genesis, this is really, really interesting. In Genesis, chapter 38, verse 1. Lo and behold, I'm on the King James Version for once. Genesis chapter 38, verse 1. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned into a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hirah. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her and went in unto her, and she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Er. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. Or Unan. Onan. And she bare again, she conceived, yet again she conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Shelah. And he was at Chazib, and when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. One of those very non-descriptive verses. Why? What did he do? And why would the Lord, kill him? And then it says, and Judah said to Onan, go in unto your brother's wife, marry her, and raise up seed to your brother. So this is exactly what we read in Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 5. That the brother is supposed to go into the late brother's wife to have children with her, to marry her and have children with her, because that's only in the circumstance that the late brother's wife didn't have any children. So you see the extent that the Torah goes to ensure that they have children. It's quite serious. Moving on, the next verse says, and Onan knew that his seed shall not be his. In other words, that the children that he would bear through Tamar would not be his children, but rather his late brother's children. So he didn't like that. And it came to pass when he went in unto his brother's wife that he spilled it on the ground, lest he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. One of the very few times you would see that God actually singled someone out to kill them for doing something so bad. But this was so bad in God's sight. So this is obviously a serious commandment here. Onan paid with his life for not following through with this command. Septuagint, and if your brethren should live together and one of them should die and should not have seed, the wife of the deceased shall not marry out of the family to a man not related. Her husband's brother shall go into her and shall take her to himself for a wife and shall dwell with her. Syriac says, when brothers will dwell as one and one of them die and he has no son, the wife of the dead will not marry a foreign man, but her husband's brother shall take her, and she shall be his wife, and he shall perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. Vulgate, when brethren dwell together and one of them dies without children, the wife of the deceased shall not marry to another, but his brother shall take her and raise up seed for his brother. Targum. Excuse me. I'm going to go back here and go to the Targum. When brethren from the same father. Oh, so that's a little bit more descriptive there. When brethren from the same father inhabit this world at the same time. Oh, okay. And have the same inheritance, the wife of one of them who may have died shall not go forth into the street to marry a stranger. Her brother-in-law shall go to her and take her to wife and become her husband. And the Samaritan says, if fellows dwell together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the deceased shall not be married outside to a strange man. Her husband's fellow shall go in to her and take her to himself as wife and perform the duty of a husband's fellow to her. Jolly good fellow. Verse 6, Masoretic text. It shall be that the firstborn whom she bears shall succeed in the name of his brother who is dead, that his name not be blotted out of Israel. So you see all of these commandments, again, everything here, everything in 24 and 25 here, it's all just commandments of mercy, protection, protect the reputation, protect your livelihood. Here, protect the name, reputation. The subtitle here is like widowhood and marriage, and the other one, I shouldn't say subtitle, subheading is fairness and mercy, widowhood and marriage. And actually, I think a better subheading would be commandments of protection, mercy. Okay, so verse 6, Septuagint, it shall come to pass that the child which she shall bear shall be named the name of the deceased, and his name shall not be blotted out of Israel. So protecting his name. Syriac, and the firstborn that she bears will be named by the name of his dead brother, that his name will not be forgotten from Israel. And the Vulgate, and the first son that he shall have of her, he shall call by his name, that his name not be abolished out of Israel. Targum, oops, where'd that go now? Targum, here we are. And the firstborn whom she bears shall stand in the inheritance in the name of the deceased brother, that his name may not be blotted out from Israel. Samaritan text. And it shall be that the firstborn son whom she bears shall assume the name of his dead brother, that his name not be blotted out from Israel. Verse 7. If the man doesn't want to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gates of the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to raise up to his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of a husband's brother to me. Septuagint. If the man should not be willing to take his brother's wife, then shall the woman go up to the gate of the elders, and she shall say, my husband's brother will not raise up the name of his brother in Israel. My husband's brother has refused. Okay, so that's a little bit extra there. Syriac. If a man does not want to take the wife of his brother, the wife of his brother shall go up to the gate of the elders, and she shall say, my husband's brother does not want to establish his brother's name in Israel and does not want to marry me. Vulgate. But if he not take his brother's wife, who by law belongs to him, the woman shall go to the gate of the city and call upon the ancients and say, my husband's brother refuses to raise up his brother's name in Israel and will not take me to wife. Targum. But if the man be not willing to take his sister-in-law, then shall his sister-in-law go to the gate of the Beit Din, this is the house of judgment, before 5 of the sages, 3 of whom shall be judges, and 2 of them witnesses. And let her say before them in the holy language, my husband's brother refuses to keep the name of his brother in Israel, he not being willing to marry me. And the Samaritan says, if the man does not desire to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gate of the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to establish a name for his brother in Israel. He is not willing to perform the duty of a husband's brother to me. All right. All right, verse 8, Masoretic text. Then the elders of his city shall call him and speak to him, and if he stands and says, I don't want to take her, the Septuagint, and if the elders of his city shall call and speak to him, and if he stand and say, I will not take her, pretty much the same. Syriac, the elders of her town shall call him, and they shall speak with him. And if he shall rise and say, I am not taking her, pretty much all the same there. The Vulgate says, the woman shall come before the ancients. Well, this is different. This is verse 9. Verse 8, and they shall cause him to be sent. Wait a second, what's going on here? Okay, just so different. It's confusing. And they shall cause him to be sent forthwith, and shall ask him, if he answer, I will not take her to wife. Targum says, and the elders of his city shall call him and speak with him with true counsel, and he may rise up in the house of justice and say in the holy language, or holy tongue, I am not willing to take her. And the Samaritan says, and the elders of his city shall summon him and speak to him, and if he persists and says, I do not desire to take her. Verse 9, Masoretic text. Then his brother's wife shall come to him in the presence of the elders, and loose his sandal from off his foot, and spit in his face. She shall answer and say, so shall it be done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. Well, it's a whole lot better than being struck dead by God. Septuagint says, then his brother's wife shall come forward before the elders, and shall loose one shoe from off his foot, and shall spit in his face, and shall answer and say, thus shall they do to the man who will not build his brother's house in Israel. Syriac. His brother's sister shall come near to him before the elders, and she shall loose his shoe from his foot, and she shall spit in his face, and she shall say, thus it shall be done to the man who will not build up the household of his brother. Vulgate, the woman shall come to him before the ancients, and shall take off his shoe from his foot and spit in his face, and say, so shall it be done to the man that will not build up his brother's house. Samaritan. And his brother's wife shall come to him in the sight of the elders, and pull his shoe off his foot, and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, thus it is done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. Okay, one more short verse, and then I'll get to that comment that I was referring to earlier. It's really an interesting comment. I did double check it, and it is apparently true. It's really interesting. All right, so here it is, verse 10, Masoretic text. His name shall be called in Israel, quote, the house of him who has had his sandal removed, unquote. That is the name. So you see how this is a good example of a name not just being a word or the way how you pronounce something, but it's actually a description of the person. The name of a person is a description of the person, not just, well, it's Yahusha instead of Yeshua, or it's Yahshua instead of Yeshua. No, the name of Yeshua, the name of Jesus, is the description of who he is. It's not necessarily a word that you pronounce with your mortal lips. Okay, so in the same way, this guy's name is not necessarily just one word kind of thing, but it's an actual description. Septuagint, and his name shall be called in Israel, the house of him who has had his shoe loosed. That's the name. That's his name. The house of him who has had his shoe loosed. Hey, the house of him who has had his shoe loosed. That is his name. Syriac, and his name shall be called in Israel, the house of the loose shoe. A little bit different. Means the same thing. Vulgate, and his name shall be called in Israel, the house of the unshod. The house of the unshod. Targum. Oh, we missed verse 9 there in the Targum, didn't we? Verse 9, we'll read verse 9. Then shall his sister-in-law come before the sage. Oh, I think didn't we get this? We'll go to verse 10 anyway. Verse 10 from the Targum, and all who are standing there shall exclaim against him, and shall call his name in Israel, the house of the unshod. It does seem to me like Jerome did take from the Targum in many times in his compilation of the Vulgate text. The Samaritan says, and in Israel his name shall be called the house of him whose shoe is removed. There you have it, folks. Okay, so here is the comment that I was referring to earlier. This is something I was not aware of. It's very interesting. Calvin says about 2 Peter, chapter 3, verses 15 and 16, Peter would never have spoken thus about Paul. Calvin. So you may wonder, who's Calvin? Calvin is one of the leaders of the Protestants, a Protestant leader. It's where we get the name Calvinism from. John Calvin is considered to be one of the, depending where you come from. I mean, if you're a Protestant, many Protestants consider John Calvin to be like one of the great Christian leaders of, in history, one of the great church leaders of history. They even, form their Calvinism around John Calvin. So according to this, which I did look up, and this is true, John Calvin literally said, this person actually quoted what he said. So John Calvin said, for it was very necessary to take away the occasion for this calumny, and yet, when I examine all things more narrowly, it seems to me more probable that this epistle, that's 2 Peter, was composed by another, according to what Peter communicated, that it was written by then that it was written by himself, for Peter himself would never spoken thus. But it is enough for me that we have a witness of his. And then this person by the name of Four Yaws says, you can disregard 2 Peter. Calvin says so. So says. Very interesting. Now, I may not agree with everything that John Calvin said, but this is very interesting that he would say this. I would like to know why he would say, what he bases this claim on. But, we do have many early church fathers and other leaders throughout history that have rejected 2 Peter as a forgery. It seems that even John Calvin himself did. All right. So, that'll be it for tonight. Yeah, a little FYI there. John Calvin did not think that 2 Peter was legitimately from Peter. Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. If you haven't already, please leave a like, subscribe, and follow if you're new here and just watching this. If this is at all valuable to you, please consider supporting the channel. You can do so two different ways: by becoming a member on the YouTube channel. Click the join button underneath or the link in the description. You can also support it over and above through our Subscribe Star page, link in the description. You guys are amazing. You guys are world changers. Keep on keeping on. Keep on calling on him, and he will show you great and mighty things that you don't know. Seek the Lord says, thank you for your time this evening, brother. God bless you and all here richly and abundantly. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Seek the Lord. God bless you more. Blessings multiplied to you and your family. Al says, thank you for another wonderful study. Excellent job always. You do every stream. God bless you, bro. Shalom. Have a great night all. Thank you very much, Al. I appreciate that. Blessings multiplied back to you and your family. Shalom, shalom. Okay, guys. Keep on calling on him, and he will show you great and mighty things. Jeremiah 33:3. Love you guys. Good health, long life to you. I pray the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face to shine upon you, lift up his countenance upon you, and give you wonderful, wonderful shalom. Amen, amen. We'll see you guys tomorrow.